All right. So we're back. I was interrupted by, I think, the hotel internet kicking me off, but I'm back up now. Yeah. So we were talking about Section 230 and government censorship, and the government under the Biden administration during the pandemic would tell people to take down things because there were misinformation or they knew it was Russian disinformation. And then there was a lawsuit and they stopped for maybe about half a year because they were afraid they were not allowed to do that. And as I recall, there was a decision made about a month ago that they are allowed to do that. The government is allowed to advise web platforms of content that's bad and they should probably take it down.
Yeah, so Fauci was involved in that, and there have been, I believe, a lot of emails that were released or messages that were released that they're blaming Fauci and government for not allowing free speech and advising social media platforms to take down posts.
Right.
Now, I guess what we're saying is that's okay. But then the question comes, can the government tell social media to do that?
Yeah.
And I think the answer is they can.
That seems to be the current answer. But of course, at some point it would be pressure, and that would probably violate the First Amendment. So I think where the line is not clear.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's ever been an issue with the government saying you should take this down but the problem is when the government says you must take this speech down.
Well, I don't think that's ever happened, at least not recently. But yeah, but of
No,
course,
but that is the claim in political circles.
right. And to be fair, you do have if you're a Microsoft, the government is a big customer, so they could say, if you don't take this down, maybe we're not going to put so much stuff in Azure. So in a way, there's a possibility of pressure, even if it's not like a demand.
Well, here's a discussion that I heard is when does a political contribution flip to a bribe?
Yeah.
And it doesn't anymore.
That's now
there's a ruling.
If you paid in advance, it's a bribe. If you pay after the goon, it's a gratuity, and that's now legal.
Yeah.
I think this is specifically because that's what Clarence Thomas got. So they declared whatever he did legal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's corrupt as hell. The Supreme Court has been corrupt before, but we're definitely living through one of the most corrupt Supreme Courts of my lifetime.
Yeah. And it's going to be interesting where we go with Project 2025.
Which I think is going to happen because it looks like Trump is going to win.
Yeah.
The Democrats are spinning their wheels, and Trump is a hero for surviving getting shot.
So
it's a crazy system. Democracy is looking so good. It's not like the best people have risen to the top, not even remotely.
Well, we should do what they do in Mexico. They have 40 candidates, or they have 50, 60 candidates running, and the drug lords just kill 40 of them off. It becomes much easier.
That's what I've heard. Yeah, I've heard you don't want to run in any kind of political position in Mexico. They just kill people like right and left.
Right.
They weed out those that are weak.
Yeah, that's one way.
Survival of the fittest.
Yeah, that's like Darwinian. That's like Elon Musk's eugenics, where he says, I need to have lots of children because I have superior genes,
Yeah.
Well,
all right. Who's got another story?
Let's go back to Caitlin. Caitlin's got some really crazy politics.
Yeah, so we were just talking about how it looks like Trump is going to win. Well, maybe not. This surprised me. So Donald Trump's poll numbers did not go up after he got shot at. So this is from Newsweek by Flynn Nichols. And they did some polling. It was by the Morning Consult of 2,045 registered voters. And Trump is leading Joe Biden by 1%. But it hasn't moved that much since the shooting, which is surprising. You would think I saw this one article saying we're all MAGA now or some BS like that. But no, it looks like it's not affected the race in the way I thought it would. Now, I'm not saying that Trump isn't looking like the presumptive winner at this point. I mean, he has a lot of support. Biden is Biden.
Yeah.
Um,
Biden's behind, and it's
yep.
really hard to imagine Biden doing something to inspire people and make people like him more. He's really kind of in a deep hole.
He's in a deep hole, which is surprising because Trump is a criminal. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
He violated his oath to the Constitution. He was
yeah,
a figure behind the January 6th insurrection. He's been impeached twice. He's gone through impeached proceedings twice. The dude has no business being in the um being in the White House. And a lot of thoughts went through my head. And I think we all had a lot of thoughts go through our heads when the shooting happened. And my first thought was, I know the statistics on this. So I know who's likely to be a shooter, and I know, how these go. And I was honestly surprised at first to hear someone tried to shoot at Donald Trump, because in today's climate, you don't really see a whole lot of Republicans being targeted because most of the shooters are conservative.
well, the
And
last president to be shot was Reagan. I mean, it
yeah,
happened.
it does happen. Right. He was, yeah. But also keep in mind the political climate is different now than in Reagan's
Well, yeah,
time.
but almost none of the shooters seem to be motivated by politics. They're mostly
Yeah.
just nuts, like the guy
Yeah. So
Reagan wanted to impress Jodie Foster.
right.
Bush
So I
was
knew
shot at.
so here's the thing. So okay, I knew that the profile of this person is probably going to be a nutter,
Yeah,
but also a conservative, just because that's the statistical thing, right? And it turns out that's sort of is what it's turning out to be. But at the time, I went on Twitter and I saw all these people making the most ridiculous statements, mostly on the right, about just outright lies that it was,
oh yeah,
somehow Biden
Antifa.
was behind Antifa and
Yeah,
Biden and all this stuff. Like no, like that's just not no. And I was really dismayed by the fact that people just lie like that. And now it turns out that even people on the left are having their own just absolute break with reality here. So Newsweek has another article here by Chloe Mayer, and apparently 1 in 3 Biden supporters have this conspiracy theory that the shooting was somehow faked or a false flag operation or something, which of course is absolute nonsense. Now, listen, one thing that I don't want our politics to devolve into is a whole bunch of conspiracy theories,
yeah,
right? I want voters to be informed. And it's very disheartening listening to people on the right, and this is very common on the right, to just believe absolute nonsense. Like they're not getting their news from Reuters, they're
mhm,
not getting their news from um, you know, sort of unbiased sources. They get their news from like social media and
TikTok.
right wing, yeah, and like
TikTok.
TikTok and right wing, outlets and stuff like that. And this is very common on the right, I've noticed. Not so much on the left, but it's still there.
Oh yeah,
And it really people need to call this out. And the other thing people need to call out is the goddamn pearl clutching. So here we have the Republicans who for a long time now were saying, lock her up, and Trump is being like, I'm going to beat up people and at his rallies, and I'll pay for your lawyers and doing all this stuff and telling everyone, fear mongering, and the immigrants are going to get you. And someone shoots up Trump and shoots at Trump. Trump thankfully survived. And now they're like, oh, this is just all the terrible rhetoric from the left. Like, oh my God.
yeah,
Like the pearl clutching is just absolutely sickening. And the other thing that was just as sickening are the people on the left who are like, you know, violence is always wrong, and this is just the most horrible thing. And of course, I don't support violence, right? Like our American system of politics works best by people voting and not shooting at each other. With that said, though, like, does violence ever belong in politics? That's a philosophical question that really just is not a yes or no answer. There are times, certainly, when violence is is necessary, like when you're protecting yourself against a fascist state. So just both sides. I don't want to both sides this. I mean, but I'm hearing messages from the Democrats and Republicans that are both just annoying me to all get out.
Well, you know what I heard? The kid is a gun nut, and he got thrown out of a gun club because he was such a lousy shot. And in fact, he was 130 yards away. And I looked it up. I've read this. They say 130 yards is easy. They say even a beginner with rudimentary equipment with that rifle should be able to hit a target at that range. So apparently, he is a really lousy shot. And that makes it even more insane that the Secret Service wasn't policing those locations. He was so close that even a bad shot could shoot somebody, and they ought to be securing those locations, obviously.
All right, Sam, right. I want to do a little fact checking here.
Yeah.
How far away did he say? Did you say that was? How many?
130 yards. And I looked it up, and they say even a beginner with an AR-15 is rudimentary equipment is expected to be able to accurately shoot 100 to 200 yards. And an expert can go out to 500 to 600.
Well, 50 some years ago, was it 50 years ago? That was not the case. We were told at 90 yards, that would have been an impossible shot. When Kennedy was hit by Oswald from the school book depository. I just looked that up.
Not a sniper with a sniper rifle. Sniper rifles went pretty far even back then, I think. I'm not sure though. Maybe not.
Yeah, but he had an Italian sniper rifle with a scope. What did the boy have? The kid?
AR-15. The same thing.
No scope. No scope whatsoever. The guy was complete.
They said rudimentary equipment. You should still be able to do 100 to 200 yards. That's why they threw him out of the gun club for being a rotten shot.
So how come Oswald couldn't do it then at 90 yards with a scope?
Was he a trained sniper? I don't know who he
was. Yes.
Oh, well, then that's another thing that makes no sense about that one, because that's not that far for a sniper. I think even back then, although I don't really know. It's certainly not.
No, I don't know either, but point being is interesting how that conspiracy theory has lived on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I've got the one I thought was actually the most important cybersecurity story is Wiz. Alphabet is going to buy Wiz for $23 billion. It's their biggest acquisition ever, apparently, and it might get blocked by regulators. But I never heard of Wiz, so I looked at Wiz, and it sounds like a really good product. It's cloud security. So it sounds like it's souped up firewalls and authentication and stuff for the cloud. Right now your cloud provider will have things like Amazon Guard Duty and stuff. And apparently this is the third-party cloud security product that is really good. And cloud security is pretty bad. And everybody needs a good product to improve it. So hopefully it'll work if Google buys it. It'll be a big step forward for their security. And maybe they'll improve their cloud infrastructure. Because I was just talking to my students today, Google is number 3 in the cloud. And they've been knocking on the door of like Amazon and Azure for years and having no hope of ever making it to number 2. But if they were more secure, maybe that would be an argument for them to compete with the others. But it's hard to imagine them ever dislodging Amazon or Microsoft.
So here's the problem with cloud. You've already invested in a platform.
Yeah.
So that would be a wholesale change to move from Azure to Amazon or Amazon to Google.
A lot of people on multi-cloud because, of course, they want both Windows and Linux servers.
Yeah.
But still, I know it's a big deal, but the problem is the current cloud deployments are dreadfully insecure. The permissions are pretty bad. And so if there was some kind of other product you could buy and add on to make it more secure, it might be a good seller.
Yeah, possibly.
That's what Wiz is. So I don't think they have a free version of our students to play with, which is a shame, but it sounds like a very interesting product.
Yep. All right.
All right. And so Irvin, you've got another one, eh?
Yes. A former OpenAI researcher has made Eureka Labs, and they're going to make courses that are AI native. The first one that they put out is for undergraduate level audiences. It's not yet done, but they have it out on GitHub for the world to see.
Yeah, so you can make your own LLM.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looks very interesting. I'm going to have to try it and see if it would make good projects. It looks, I took a quick look at it. It looks really too difficult and too many steps and too many details, but we'll see.
You know, when non-teachers make courses, they need teachers to help make things right.
Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, it's an interesting idea and might turn into some good projects.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think that's it. You haven't got any more, have you, Doug?
Oh, that's it for me.
All right. Well, that's it for this one. Hopefully this podcast is going to be okay. It's going to be in two pieces, but I don't think it vanished like the last one. So we'll have another one of these on Friday afternoon. Maybe Saturday. I might be on an airplane Friday. Anyway, I'll communicate with you. Friday or Saturday, we'll have another one. So I'm
Yeah.
stopping this one.